What if you didn't dread taxes, spreadsheets, or business planning? What if clarity around your numbers could actually make you feel empowered? Today's guest is here to help us ditch the financial fog and step into real control. Welcome to Hacks and Hobbies. I'm Junaid Ahmed, and today's guest is Paden Squires. Hold on. Today's guest is Paden Squires, a CPA, CFP, and the founder of Squires Tax Planning. He's an accountant turned entrepreneur who's made it his mission to demystify the money side of business. Whether it's tax strategy, smart planning, or building a profitable system, Paden brings peace of mind to his pieces. Paden brings peace of mind. Paden brings peace of mind to the pieces that normally stress us out. Let's dive into how to take the fear out of finances and find clarity in your business. Paden, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Paden, you didn't just become a CPA. You launched a business around helping others feel more confident with theirs. What sparked that transition from employee to entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a great question. My journey as an entrepreneur really starts. I started my business back in 2014. Before that, I had a short career as an employee, a handful of years. Kind of worked in the corporate world. Kind of figured out pretty quick that the employee world was not for me. I wanted too much control over. I just wanted control over my schedule and what I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
do day to day. From there, I ultimately, after I finished college, I worked a few jobs. I ended up passing the CPA exam while I was still working at one of the corporate jobs. And
Nice.
as soon as I could get out of there, I got out of there. I quit, started up my own firm just in the living room of my home in 2014.
Dude, that's so awesome. The inspiration, the commitment, and then going into actually building out your business. Was there a moment where you realized that most entrepreneurs were flying blind financially? Kind of
You
like
know,
hacks,
it,
maybe?
yeah, it took me a while. And see, when I got into public accounting, I guess I assumed that business owners had their stuff a little more together, right? As I've gotten into it, of course, I've worked with over 1,000 entrepreneurs over my career, and um, nothing shocks me anymore, right? Like I,
Mm-hmm.
I I work with, I'll come into multi-million-dollar revenue businesses, and their finances are just kind of a mess. And that from
Mm-hmm.
just like an organizational standpoint or from the standpoint to be able to make any decisions, based off what the financial information is given them. So like nothing shocks me anymore. Entrepreneurs get into business because they're good at sales or they're good at marketing or good at some skill they have. It's usually not finances.
No,
Finances, while it's a major pillar of a business, most entrepreneurs haven't
that
learned a
figured
ton.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Peyton, what mindset shift did you personally have to make stepping out on your own when you were launching your business?
That was great. I looking back at it, I can confidently say it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. Um, the timing just kind of worked out. It was
Mm-hmm.
a interesting deal. I'd been working a corporate job. My wife had she was just finishing up nursing school at the time, so she was kind of coming on, getting her career up and going. And I was like,
Yeah.
hey, you can replace my income with your income, and I'm going to quit and start a job. So like the timing, or start a business. So the
Start a
timing of it
business.
really kind of worked out.
Yeah.
Um, but sometimes I look back and wonder, what did give me the courage to do that?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that I have the right answer. I just finally just jumped. And it
You wanted more
is,
control
one of
of
the
your
best
time,
decisions I've made.
like you
Yeah.
mentioned, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I wanted the control of the time and the flexibility that, just running your own schedule
Yeah.
provides.
Now, Peyton, let's move from mindset to mechanics because clarity doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah.
What's one of the biggest misconceptions you see when it comes to small business finances?
One of the biggest misconceptions is I think often business owners think they can maybe just kind of hire that out and not, it's like, hey, this is this big thing that they don't understand and don't want to deal with, right? So they think they can just pass that off to an expert.
Hmm.
And I'm all about passing stuff off to experts and sharing and letting people run in their own lanes. But the issue with that is you need to understand it at least to some degree, right? You don't need to be an expert in
Yeah.
taxes or accounting, but you need to know how to read a basic financial statement, your own financial statement of your business, right? Because why do you have financial statements? Most people just, hey, what we got to do taxes, right? And that's really the only reason most businesses in the United States even have financials is because they
Wow.
have to file taxes. Because very, very few of them, percentage wise, are actually like collecting that information and using it to make business decisions off of,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Man, that's really
But it all
interesting.
but it all really comes back to
It
intentionality
does.
around it,
Yeah.
right? Like with everything in life, it's setting the intention and making a plan and actually executing on it.
I love that. Now, what do people often overcomplicate that really should be very, very simple? You mentioned the the financial plan or the financial statement and what how business actually operating. People need to be reading it or understanding what it actually means. What are
Yeah.
some of the things people are overcomplicating?
Yeah, I mean, I think often people avoid implementing, software is super abundant now, and especially with AI now, you can get amazing tools for very, for an insignificant amount of money, I guess, relative to your business. Um, there's no reason for businesses to be tracking
Mm-hmm.
their finances and their money and accounts receivable and payable, and I mean, you can go insanely in depth, KPIs, all kinds of stuff, but
Yeah.
there's no reason we as business owners can't capture all that data and measure it now, with AI note taking, and all this kind of comes down to whatever your business model is, but we have the ability now as business owners to capture every single part of our company with technology and use
Mm-hmm.
that to make better business decisions,
Yeah.
and use that to make your business better. So it's I think people make it complicated in the fact that they won't, even when it comes to just like keeping financials and accounting inside your business. I see people that'll put off buying some of the most simplest tools that would give them a huge return of their
Mm.
time if they could get one of those, tools implemented and running right.
I love that. Tools that will help you reclaim your time,
Yeah,
reclaim your peace of mind, I think would be a big thing. Talk to me
yeah,
about, Peyton, how you help clients reframe tax planning as an opportunity, not as a
yeah,
burden, because
yeah,
you
yeah.
know that's a big one.
So to kind of give you an overarching idea of the CPA market, or like the firm market, kind of how taxes generally get prepped in the United States, is that business owners, they have a CPA or a tax person. They take all their stuff to them. The tax person works it all up and gives it back to you and say, this is how much you owe. And it's accurate. It's probably done right. Um, the issue is there's no strategy in that whatsoever, right? So most people's relationship with their tax professional is just a tax preparer, someone that is just filling out the boxes, and that's great because that needs done, right? And that has to be filed.
Yeah.
But the problem is, where there's a big hole or a big lack of, I would say, qualified professionals or people that are actively looking to strategize with you. So like it's tax planning can be a huge opportunity for businesses and stuff that, of course, my firm focuses on dramatically, but it's proactively working with business owners in a very structured process throughout the year, making decisions and helping them plan to actually drive down their taxes, not just fill out the form and tell them how much they owe.
I love that so much because having that active strategy planning around the taxes, there's so much messages out there. There's so many TikTok videos being created of, oh, you got to have this kind of thing, and you can save this much money. You can have
A lot.
your
Some of those are
kids
pretty
as an
garbage.
employee in your LLC, and I'm like, wow,
Mhm.
there's so much information out there. Where do you even get started, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
part
and
of
there's
planning, I'm guessing.
yeah, and there is, and of course with the internet, there's a lot of great stuff and there's a lot of just total garbage.
Mm,
And it's people talking about, maybe giving advice that is just totally irrelevant to your own situation. So that's,
yeah,
I would caution you with any of that stuff is like all this stuff is very personalized, the advice you need to be getting.
100%.
Um,
It's cup-
so yeah, it's what I would suggest, for anybody is starting to get intentional about all this stuff and like we like to use the word proactive versus reactive, and that's setting the intention that I'm gonna work with my CPA throughout the year, and we're gonna be on top of this tax bill and actively driving it down so that we don't get to April and just, wow, a $30,000 tax bill or whatever the amount is just there and you had no idea it was coming, right?
yeah, yeah. Having that idea ahead of time as you're building or coming into that tax year is super super important. And that for businesses, I believe they have to file even more taxes throughout the years. Correct?
Yeah, yeah, just kind of depending on how you're structured. I mean, of course, you probably got, if you got employees, you definitely got payroll returns and quarterly taxes there. And also if you're structured like an S corp or a partnership, you actually have an earlier filing deadline of March 15th as opposed to the personal deadline of April 15th in the United
Wow,
States. Yeah.
Peyton, that's really news to me. Ta right? Somebody who's not financially, literate or tax literate. Can you walk us through what a clarity session or an initial consultation might look like with your company?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, like, how our process kind of works is, of course we have, I have an initial kind of consultation with a potential client. From there we kind of have a conversation, get high level understanding what you got going on, what do you have going on business wise, what have you had going on the last couple of years, what do you
Yeah.
see coming down the pipe the next few years. So really just trying to do some good data collection. From there, we also collect tax returns. Tax returns, as CPAs, tax returns tell us a whole lot of information. We're really good at
Mm,
looking at
that's
those.
right.
Um, from there, we're really analyzing your situation and we're looking for opportunities. And I will say this, I've never looked at a tax return without an opportunity for tax savings.
Love
Now,
that.
do you actually want to execute on the thing or not? Maybe it depends on your personal situation, but there are always opportunities to do something if if you're intentional and proactive about it. We get people's tax returns. Often we kind of review those, put together a simple plan, kind of come back to the business owner, and I consult with them again. I'm like, hey, here's four different things you've probably never even considered. You might have heard of them, maybe one or two of these, but you certainly have never implemented them or executed on any of them, right? And so that's very common. It's very common for us to come in and find a handful of strategies that'll save them, you know. I mean, it's not uncommon to find strategies make 20, $30,000 in tax savings. And of course, it
Yeah.
really depends on your personal, how much income in your personal situation. But that's not uncommon at all. So from there, it's like, hey, do you want us to work with us? What we're really good at is actually implementing these strategies and
Mm,
documenting them. In case you were ever to get audited or whatnot, there's pieces that need to be in place that auditors will want to see if you are to get audited. So, we have a lot of great tools to make the documentation super simple for our clients, to
nice.
capture these savings. And we really try to structure these deals of like, this is a return on investment. We're going to cost less than the money we're going to go get you.
Mm, no, you're absolutely right. And those strategies and those plans are gonna a big return on investment,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I
in the
said,
long
and I,
run.
I I tell clients all the time, where I'm maybe having a consultation with a client, and they're kind of like borderline where it may not make sense to go through the whole process, and I'm
Sure.
I'm straight up with them. It's like, hey, there's not enough value here, we're just won't go down that process. But it's all we always want to structure these as, win-wins, right?
Yeah,
Like whatever you pay us is going to be, pennies to the dollars that you get.
nice. And just when we start to get a grip on the basics, here comes growth, right? You got the grips on
Yeah.
the basic growth. So let's talk about how entrepreneurs can build systems that scale with them.
Yeah, that's great. Interesting enough, I was slow to the systems game. As an entrepreneur, I ran pretty much a solo practice for,
Mm,
I don't know, call it 5, 6 years. So all the systems were just in my head. Completely unscalable, guys.
yeah,
Anyway, in the last, I would say 5, 6 years, I really started building up those systems in my own business and building out teams and whatnot. Um, yeah, I mean, super important, right? We have the core value in our business of systemize excellence, right? We want to
mm,
create systems and processes that any are almost like foolproof, right? Like you can't, not that we have them there yet. We're almost there, but you got to be able to have a systems that you don't need to be there as the entrepreneur, because
mm,
ultimately, like the path of the entrepreneur is to kind of start as the operator, move into, a business owner. And as you're running the business, you're kind of fighting all the day-to-day battles, and then you build systems, and you kind of eventually, hopefully, are sitting on top of the business as
yeah,
purely the owner and not, the day-to-day business doesn't need you at all. And the only way to do that is with processes. And
yeah,
going back to earlier conversation, I mean, the technology out there today and how cheap it is for what it does for you. Um, there's really no excuses other than, hey, you need to go learn this stuff, or, investigate the tools you need for your business to create repeatable processes that, if you're that business owner that's working 70 hours a week or whatever, you need better processes because you should, if you, and don't get me wrong, if you like to work that long, great. There's nothing wrong with that. I like to work a
mm,
lot too. But if you're doing that because you're just really, really busy, you got a process problem.
yes, yes, you do. You got a problem. Now, Peyton, you also help business owners create the foundation, not just for taxes, but for growth. What are some key structures you help entrepreneurs put in place early?
Yeah. Great CRM system. I think is key. A CRM system that's also great for sales and marketing. Two other major pillars of business activity. So, like this is another thing that I messed up quite a bit in my own business early. I didn't really have a central system where I stored email list and client information. Like years into business when I started doing
Mm-hmm.
this stuff. But it's that's one big one is having a great CRM. Now it's these tools can do all kinds of crazy stuff, and don't get lost up into all the bells and whistles of all these
Yeah.
things. But it's really having a CRM system where you can email your client, you can bulk, communicate with your clients. You can store all these kinds of notes and everything about them. So you have all this information. Like you got one source of like truth in your business. It's, in my opinion, it's crucial to nail that down and get a good way system to track your finances.
No, you're 100% right. A good CRM system not only tracks your customers, the relationships that you have with them, the marketing, as well as, hey, when's the last time you interacted with this customer? Did they buy any
Yeah.
products? All of that is
Yep.
in the CRM system, and you can
Yeah.
easily then build promotions and contact with them as you move forward. I absolutely love
And
that, Peyton.
and the tools there are so amazing, like
Yeah.
with AI note takers and like CRM systems. So we will have teams meetings with somebody, the AI note takers on there. As soon as we get off the meeting, all the notes go into the CRM system under the
Yes.
contact. You go to that contact into the CRM, you can pull them up, and that also has AI layered in it. So up in
Mm-hmm.
the top corner, you see a little box there, and it'll just like anybody can just read this paragraph, and it kind of tells you what our last interactions were about and
Yeah.
what's going on with the client. And it's wild. And what I would tell you too is even on those AI note takers, I do a lot of different presentations and sales calls and different things. My AI will tell me how well you thought the call went based off of how you
Nice.
responded and and your tone of voice and all
Yeah,
those
yeah.
things. It'll give me a customer satisfaction score, which is pretty wild.
That is pretty wild. So talk
But
to us
then you
about.
can even take it to another level
Oh
is
yeah.
that we've started using it for sales training too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, we have a full transcripts of all our calls.
Yeah.
You can dump that into AI and say, based off of everything you know about my company and our core values and everything, like how
Yeah.
could we have done this call better?
I love that.
And it'll
Yeah.
give you a lot of
AI.
great advice.
AI. No, AI is really a powerful tool, and we're hearing it more and more, and it's getting more and more powerful. Like it's not just a product on its own; it's a feature that you can add on and bolt on to your business to give you the superpowers that AI brings
Yeah.
to the forefront.
And it's changing rapidly. It's
Yeah, it
fast.
is. Peyton, talk to me
It's cool.
about how should solopreneurs approach paying themselves. I know there's
Yeah.
a really powerful book by Mike McCulloch's. I can't even say his name. It's
Oh,
called
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, yeah,
Profit
yeah, yeah.
First, right?
Yeah.
Profit First.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've met Mike years
nice.
ago. Yeah.
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 So talk to me about how should solopreneurs approach paying themselves.
Yeah, that's good. Now, and when it comes to paying yourself, some of this depends on your structure, but I'll talk over at a high level. And why I'm not like a big profit first like cheerleader. I mean, I think it's a really solid system.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have no system, yeah, definitely check it out. But the whole idea of like profit first you were talking about there is that it's kind of setting the intentionality going into the business of, okay, I want to have a 20% net profit margin or
Mm-hmm.
whatever that number is, and really just budgeting that in and having
Yeah.
to back, if you know your end goal of your profit margin, well, every dollar comes in the business, how many cents are owner's profit, how many cents are like overhead, how many cents are like cost of goods sold.
Yeah.
So if you can really get that nailed down, like you can get really consistent in knowing of like every dollar that comes in the door, what percentage goes in what buckets. And that's kind of what the profit first method ultimately does. So
Yeah.
it helps you get really organized, because that's what happens is people, especially solopreneurs, they ultimately just do what I call like just running the business by the bank account. They
Mm-hmm.
just kind of look at the bank account every morning and, hey, there's money in there or there's money in there, right? And it's not, there's nothing like, there's no forecasting or knowing what's coming next. The only piece of information they have is like how much money's in the bank today.
Yeah.
And that's once again just no way to run the business. And ultimately,
Mm-hmm.
very, small business solopreneurs do a lot of that stuff. And ultimately they end up working all year long
Mm-hmm.
to make no money or maybe even lose money because there's nothing what you measure and track will improve. If you don't measure and track it, it's probably not going to improve.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Well, Peyton, this was really powerful. Thank you so much for coming on. Next time, we're going to go beyond the books into decision making, time freedom, and how Peyton helps founders not just make more, but keep more.
Love it.
Uh, yeah, we're gonna focus on those things. Peyton, this was so good. You helped us
Thanks,
rethink
man.
finances, not as fear, but as a framework. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Now, in episode 2, we'll talk about real world client transformations, how to make high stakes decisions with confidence, and what principles Peyton borrowed from Ray Dalio that changed how he builds his business. So go ahead and subscribe, follow, and we'll see you in part 2.